In the quaint town of Whistlewood, where the streets meandered like playful streams and the houses wore hats of thatched roofs, there lived 3 Miller brothers, Tom, Tim, and Tiny. When their dear old Miller father passed away, he left behind his mill, his donkey, and a peculiar-looking cat with an uncanny fondness for shoes. Tom, the eldest, took the mill, for he loved the rhythm of the grinding grains. Tim, with dreams of traveling, took the donkey to carry his packs. This left Tiny, the youngest and dreamiest of the 3, with the cat. Tiny, always lost in his world of stories, didn't mind one bit. After all, he thought, every storyteller needs a peculiar companion. One morning, as Tiny was mending his own pair of shoes, the cat, with twinkling green eyes, meowed a request.
Might I have a pair of those shiny boots I've seen in Mr. Cobbler's shop window?
Tiny chuckled.
Boots for a cat? Whatever for?
But seeing the cat's earnest expression, Tiny thought, why not? And so, using the last of his coins, Tiny bought the cat the shiniest pair of boots. The next day, as the sun began its ascent, painting the sky in shades of amber, the cat, looking dapper in his new boots, approached Tiny with a plan.
Master Tiny, with these boots, I feel faster, smarter, and full of zest. Entrust me with a sack and your old coat, and I promise to change our fortunes.
Curious and intrigued, Tiny handed over what the cat requested, and off the feline went, swishing his tail and tapping his shiny boots. In a nearby forest clearing, the cat, with great theatrics, laid out a trap using the sack. Soon, a curious rabbit hopped in. Swiftly tying the sack, the cat headed straight to the king's palace. At the palace gates, he introduced himself with great flair.
I am Whiskers, the messenger of the Marquis of Carabas, and I bring a gift for our beloved king.
The king, a jolly round man with a penchant for rabbit, was delighted with the gift.
Please convey my warmest regards to the Marquis of Carabas,
he said, rewarding Whiskers with a bag of gold coins. Whiskers, however, had bigger plans. Over the next few days, with his wit and shiny boots aiding him, he presented the king with a series of gifts, from plump birds to shimmering fish, all supposedly from the Marquis of Carabas. Now, the king was not only a lover of good food, but also of intriguing company.
I must meet this generous Marquis,
he declared one day. Seizing the opportunity, Whiskers nodded.
Of course, your majesty. The Marquis would be honored. However, I must inform you of a slight problem.
And what would that be?
Inquired the king. Whiskers sighed dramatically.
Alas, while the Marquis's lands are vast and rich, he has no carriage. It was stolen by a band of rogue trolls.
The king, eager to meet his mysterious benefactor, offered,
Fear not. Tomorrow, I shall take my own carriage to fetch the Marquis.
Whiskers bowed gratefully.
Your kindness knows no bounds, your majesty.
The next part of Whiskers' plan required swiftness. He sprinted to the riverside, where he found some washerwomen cleaning clothes.
Hear ye,
he declared loudly.
When the king's carriage passes by, if asked, you must say that these lands belong to the Marquis of Carabas.
The washerwomen, alarmed and having witnessed the determination in the cat with the boots, nodded in agreement. Further ahead, Whiskers approached a group of farmers. Using a mix of charm, wit, and a touch of mischief, he convinced them too to acknowledge the fictitious Marquis's ownership. Finally, Whiskers arrived at a grand castle that belonged to a wicked ogre. The ogre was known to shapeshift and was feared by all. With a deep breath, Whiskers knocked on the massive doors. They creaked open to reveal the ogre, a mountain of a creature with a thundering voice.
Who dares disturb me?
Whiskers, summoning all his courage, responded,
It is I, Whiskers, the messenger of the Marquis of Carabas. I've heard tales of your legendary shape-shifting abilities and have come to witness them myself.
The ogre, always proud and slightly vain, smirked.
Very well, watch closely.
And so, with a puff and a roar, the ogre transformed. First into a ferocious lion, then a slithering snake, and finally, at Whiskers' cheeky suggestion, a tiny mouse. Quick as lightning, Whiskers pounced, and the ogre mouse was trapped under his shiny boot. Just then, the king's carriage approached the castle, and Whiskers had to think on his feet. Whiskers rushed to the gates, greeting the king with a flamboyant bow.
Your Majesty, welcome to the grand castle of the Marquis of Carabas.
The king, impressed by the towering turrets and the vast meadows, looked around eagerly.
And where is this Marquis? I am quite eager to meet him.
With a cunning wink, Whiskers pointed to a pond where Tiny, having decided to play along, was pretending to have lost his clothes while bathing.
Oh, woe is me. Rogue thieves have stolen the Marquise's attire,
cried Whiskers in feigned despair. The king, ever the gentleman, immediately ordered his attendants to fetch a royal suit for Tiny. Dressed in the splendid clothes, Tiny was transformed. With his inherent charm and Whiskers whispering in his ear, the two quickly charmed not just the king, but also his beautiful daughter, Princess Lila. As they toured the castle, Whiskers, with a dramatic flair, narrated the tale of how he'd vanquished the evil ogre to protect the Marquise's lands. The king, already fond of the Marquise for his generous gifts, and now further impressed by the tales of bravery, whispered a proposal into Tiny's ear. With a twinkle in his eye and the sweet Princess Lila's hand in his own, Tiny nodded in agreement. That evening, under a canopy of stars, the entire town of Whistlewood gathered for the grandest celebration they'd ever seen. Tiny, the Marquise of Carabas, married the beautiful Princess Lila, uniting the lands and hearts of all. As the newlyweds danced, Whiskers, with his shiny boots, took center stage, regaling the crowd with tales of their adventures, adding a sprinkle of mischief and a dash of imagination. The Miller brothers reunited, with Tom and Tim both astounded and amused at the turn of events. Tom's mill flourished with the royal patronage, while Tim, with tales of the legendary Puss in Boots, became the most sought-after storyteller in neighboring lands. But the real hero, the cat with an uncanny fondness for shoes, was forever immortalized in the annals of Whistlewood history. And while many tales were spun in the years to come, none were as enchanting or as endearing as that of Whiskers, the Puss in Boots. And so, in the heart of Whistlewood, amidst laughter, dances, and twinkling stars, our tale finds its happily ever after. But as any good storyteller knows, every ending is but the beginning of another adventure. And Whiskers, with his shiny boots, was always ready for the next one. The end.